What is going on, you guys? It is your man Morgan Man. Thank you so much for tuning back in to the Morgan Man Sports Podcast. You can find me here on SoundCloud.com, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. Guys, we are wrapping up the very first weekend event that was hosted by the Call of Duty League online. It was the Dallas Home Series weekend event, and it was spectacular. Didn't get a lot of views, so it was up and down, but still at the end of the day, the Call of Duty League did deliver, and we are fixing to go over everything from this past weekend. So without any further delay, let's go and get straight into today's action. Alright guys, so again, this past weekend was the Dallas Home Series weekend event, and of course everything is online whenever it comes to esports. And the Call of Duty League has now finally stepped into that rotation along with the Overwatch League. So, the first matchup that we had on Friday was the Seattle Surge taking on the Paris Legion. And for a minute here, guys, I honestly thought that the Seattle Surge finally picked up their mojo, pretty much, and, was going to really cause some havoc. And, the victims would be Paris Legion. Well, it was looking like that, but then the Paris Legion ultimately came up with the dub, 3-2. And you're starting to sit here and wonder now about the Seattle Surge, because for their past, 1 out of 4, because they only won against the not Toronto Ultra, but the LA Gorillas. So they're 1 of 4 basically. But all of their games have came down to a game 5. So, they are bringing the heat. But when it comes to that game 5, they're not putting that extra oomph into it. And it just makes me wonder what is going on with the Seattle Surge. Octane, Karma, all of them, they are doing their jobs. And actually, Karma is a little... kind of mad at the codcasters for something about the commentary, for the Seattle Surge, saying, well, I don't know the exact quote, but just for them, he thinks they're saying bad things about the Seattle Surge and stuff like that. But I personally don't see it myself, but he does. But the Seattle Surge, they are putting in the work and the effort, but they're just not putting that extra oomph, like I said, into that game 5. But if they would really focus a little bit more hard and deploy certain maneuvers, I think the Seattle Surge could be one of the top elite teams. So the next matchup is the Florida Mutineers taking on the Toronto Ultra. Now the Toronto Ultra, surprisingly won over the Mutineers. And I was like, oh, okay, so now maybe the online switch is good for the Ultra. In your next matchup, you had the Chicago Huntsmen taking on the Minnesota Rocker, 3-0 in them. Now, the Rocker is a very good team. They are the top 5 team, in my personal opinion, along there with, FaZe and Huntsman and not even the Empire. Empire is not even in my top 5. And speaking of the Empire, they did win over the Gorillas 3-1. Then your Saturday matchups, you have the Paris Legion taking on the Huntsmen. I was rooting for the Paris Legion, and they did win that first hard point. I was like, oh, yes, this is the time right now where Paris Legion is finally going to win over the Huntsmen, because they have done it so many times, getting so close in that game 5, but the Huntsman just prevails. But the Huntsman did 3-1 the Paris Legion. Then the Toronto Ultra did take on the Dallas Empire, where the Empire ultimately did defeat the Toronto Ultra 3-2. So it was a little rocky for the Empire, but they did prevail and win. The Minnesota Rocker took on the Seattle Surge in the elimination match, and the Rocker did prevail 3-2. And again, Seattle Surge, a game 5, didn't have that little oomph. Florida Mutineers 3-1 over the LA Gorillas. The Mutineers are starting to get back in the rhythm without Pristini, and I'm really liking this. Yes, Pristini does deserve better, but at the end of the day, business is business. Minnesota Rocker did 3-1 Paris Legion again in an elimination match. And Minnesota Rocker is just rolling. And for your final Saturday matchup, you had the Mutineers once again taking on the Toronto Ultra. And this time, the Mutineers learned from their mistakes from the first meeting and 3-1 the Ultra. For your finals on Sunday, this was the shocker right here, guys. Well, not as big as the final shocker, but the Mutineers did defeat the Huntsmen yet again, once hit land and now once on online. So not really a big shock, but still, I was like, okay, I see it. I see it. Dallas Empire did get 3-1 at their home series weekend event against the Minnesota Rocker. And that sets up everything for the Rocker versus the Mutineers. And I want to personally congratulate the Florida Mutineers for winning their first home series weekend event, and in Dallas too. In Dallas, everybody said, "Oh, Dallas Empire, Online Warriors, they're gonna win every event." That didn't happen. It really did not. And the Florida Mutineers prevailed, and they won their first weekend event. So now if I go on over here to the CDL Points presented by Mountain Dew Game Fuel, the Chicago Huntsmen are in the lead with 110 CDL points. They gained 20 points from the Dallas Empire Homestand Series weekend event. And tied for second place is the Empire, Mutineers, and the Minnesota Rocker, all sitting at 100 points. And then coming in right here at the bottom of the top 5 is the Atlanta FaZe sitting at 90 points. But that will ultimately change once we get to the Chicago Huntsmen Home Series weekend event, which is in not this Saturday, but the next Saturday, or Friday, really. And then from 6 to 12, you have the Legion, London Royal Ravens, Optic Gaming LA, Seattle Surge, Toronto Ultra, Los Angeles Gorillas, and the New York Subliners. So guys, honestly, what is my takeaway from not only the broadcast from this past weekend, but also the teams that performed? Huntsman still looks unstoppable. Their kryptonite is the Florida Mutineers. The Dallas Empire looked a little shaky at times, especially going up against these lower ranked teams like the Toronto Ultra and the LA Gorillas. But I still, again, I'm not putting them in a top 5. They do not deserve it. Yes, they got lucky at the LA Home Series weekend event whenever FaZe got knocked out by the Minnesota Rocker. And FaZe, I hate to say it, but Rocker is our kryptonite. So it is so funny. It really is, because especially the FaZe and Rocker thing, take the Atlanta Falcons, for example. I know I'm throwing football in here, but you take the Atlanta Falcons, the Minnesota Vikings are our kryptonite whenever it comes to the regular season, and also the kryptonite for the New Orleans Saints in the playoffs. But that's another topic for another day. But anyways, yes, but the Seattle Surge, something needs to change. They really need to bring some heat at the beginning of these matches, and they really need to make a change somewhere. I don't know where, but it needs to happen. All the game in LA, they are showing a lot of heart, but right now, TJ and Quavo and oh my goodness, what happened? What happened to these players? What happened to them? And it's just unreal. London Royal Ravens did not participate, but I still think they can bounce back and get within the top 5 of the CDL points. Paris Legion, I still love you. I really do. I still love you. You were one of the teams that was really underestimated within the preseason. But past that, New York Subliners, Gorillas, Toronto Ultra, I don't know what to say. Y'all really need to change. But anyway, so now we are moving on over to what I think personally was so great about this past weekend's broadcast from the Call of Duty League as a whole. The production was phenomenal. They're actually on the level with Overwatch League pretty much. You know, having that great production value and just everything that you're really asking for. Yes, there was some minor things that if I were in charge, I would tweak it, right then and there. But of course, it is the very first home series event online, and they're going to, of course, go back over every piece of tape and figure out, all right, what can we do better now since we're online, basically. But one thing that stood out to me is the gameplay drowned the commentary voice. And what I mean by that is like Momo, for example. Whenever he's mainly the play-by-play guy, and his voice was getting drowned out by the MP5s, M4s, the MP7s, all that. And it was just getting drowned out, and I really did not like that, because if I'm listening to a broadcast event of this magnitude right here, I want to hear the commentary. I want to be involved in it, because commentary, it's just like it is for wrestling. The commentary gets you hyped into the match. But really past that, I didn't have no problem watching it. Just, again, minus the gameplay audio was just drowning Momo's voice. And of course, other commentators' voice as well. But past that, that's it. Really, that's my only kind of like critique, I should say, about the broadcast. It was a solid 99 out of 100. But guys, let me know what you think down in the comment section below. What you thought of the Call of Duty League going to online and broadcasting the Dallas Home Series weekend event. Oh, and by the way, I do want to mention one thing, that the peak viewership was from Dallas Empire and the Minnesota Rocker at 64,131. And that, I don't know, that was not looking too pretty. Really was not. But, you're back from a whole month of being out, so that's really good viewership. But trust you me, whenever I say this, come April 24th, whenever you go to Chicago, you're going to get viewership like crazy. And especially, we're in Group A too. All right. I do not want to, spoil it for next week's episode of Tuesday. It's going to be great. It really is. So, but anyways, guys, I sure hope you did enjoy today's commentary, or really podcast episode of Tuesday, discussing the Dallas Home Series weekend event. And if you did, make sure to like button here on SoundCloud.com, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or iHeartRadio. Till then, I, Cole Morgan, will catch you all later.